When my husband Ethan wanted a divorce after 15 years, I just quietly agreed and signed the papers. While he was celebrating with his mistress at our favorite restaurant, I walked up to their table, smiling. "Congrats on your freedom," I said, sliding an envelope across the table. His smirk disappeared when he read the DNA test results, which showed blood-red lipstick on crisp, white cotton. That's how my marriage ended, not with a scream or a bang, but with the quiet horror of finding something out. As I stood frozen in our walk-in closet, with Ethan's dress shirt dangling from my shaking fingers, I remembered that exact moment perfectly. It was Tuesday, 9:17 a.m. The twins were at school, and Lily was at her piano lesson. I was collecting clothes for dry cleaning when I saw Ethan's gym bag tucked behind his rows of shiny Oxford shoes. The zipper was slightly open, showing the crumpled shirt he supposedly wore to last night's emergency surgery. The stain wasn't from a medical procedure. No surgeon would wear that shade of red into an operating room. Before we keep going with Sarah's shocking discovery, I want to invite you to join our storytelling community. If stories of strength when dealing with betrayal speak to you, please hit subscribe. It's totally free and helps us share more stories about women getting their power back. Now, let's see how this seemingly perfect life starts to fall apart. I stood there, my heart pounding, as 15 years of marriage became this one damning piece of evidence. Dr. Ethan Carter, a respected heart surgeon, my husband, and father of our 3 kids, had another woman's lips on his clothes. The reality I'd carefully built and lived in shattered around me, just like fine crystal hitting marble. I definitely noticed the irony. For years, Ethan's co-workers called us the perfect Carters. He had those steady hands that saved lives daily, and I was always there, supporting our family. Our colonial home in Oakdale Heights, with its neat lawn and white picket fence, looked like a movie set. The perfect American dream. "Sarah makes it all possible," he'd say at hospital fundraisers, his arm around my waist holding a champagne flute. I couldn't do what I do without her. The other doctors' wives would smile politely, but I could tell they were envious. We had everything. 3 great kids, financial security, and a partnership that had survived the tough years of medical school, residency, and Ethan becoming famous. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs. Ethan started working later, saying the hospital didn't have enough staff. Weekend golf with his coworkers happened more often. Our talks got shorter, more to the point, planning the kids' activities, talking about household stuff, and setting up social events that would help his career. When Ethan got promoted to chief of cardiac surgery last spring, I threw a surprise party for him with all his colleagues. He smiled and thanked me publicly, but later complained I'd embarrassed him in front of the hospital board. That night, he slept in the guest room saying he was too tired. "It's just the pressure," I told my sister on the phone the next day. "Being promoted means so much more responsibility. Men in power often change, Sarah," she warned. I brushed off her concern, thinking it was just cynicism from her own failed marriage. We also grew further apart physically. Ethan said he was tired from 18-hour surgeries. When he pulled away from my touch, I bought new lingerie, planned date nights, and tried everything women's magazines suggested to keep things exciting. He'd participate half-heartedly, checking his phone all through our carefully planned evenings. "Is everything okay with us?" I asked him one night after he barely touched his favorite meal. "Just tired, Sarah. The Jenkins case is complicated." Then he'd go back to his home office, door closed, his voice a low murmur as he took calls late into the night. I believed in trust. I believed in privacy. I never thought about checking his phone or email. That was for insecure, paranoid women, not for Sarah Carter, the perfect wife. Until our 15th anniversary got close, I planned to surprise Ethan with a romantic weekend in Napa Valley, where we'd honeymooned. I needed to sync our calendars, and his phone was on the counter while he was in the shower. Just a quick peek to make sure he was free that weekend. That's all I planned. The text notification popped up as I held his phone. "Dr. Olivia Lee, last night was amazing. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. When are you leaving her?" My finger shook as I opened the message thread. Hundreds of texts from 8 months ago, intimate photos, plans made while I was taking Lily to her recital or helping the twins with their science projects, cruel jokes at my expense. "Ethan, she's planning some big anniversary surprise. Olivia, poor thing, still thinks there's something to celebrate." I quietly put the phone back, made his coffee as usual, and kissed him goodbye as he left for the hospital. Then I threw up until there was nothing left but bitter bile. That night, after the kids were asleep, I confronted him in our bedroom, the same room where we'd conceived our children, held each other through miscarriages before IVF, and where he'd comforted me after my father died. "Are you sleeping with Dr. Olivia Lee?" My voice was surprisingly steady. Ethan didn't even flinch. He took off his watch and carefully placed it on his nightstand. "Yes." "How long? Does it even matter?" He looked at me with such coldness I didn't recognize him. "I want a divorce, Sarah. The calculated cruelty in his voice shocked me more than his actual words. This wasn't a confession, this was an execution. Why? I whispered. I've outgrown this life, outgrown us. He waved around our bedroom like it was a prison cell. I've given 15 years to this marriage, to these kids. I'm 45. If I'm gonna start over, it needs to be now. Start over? We built this life together, Ethan. Everything you are, everything I am. He let out a bitter laugh. I save lives daily. What do you do, Sarah? Bake cookies for school fundraisers? Organize my sock drawer? I built this life even with the weight of domesticity holding me back. His words felt like physical blows. I put my own teaching career on hold to support his medical school dreams, managed our home and kids so he could focus on his career, and hosted tons of dinner parties with hospital administrators to help him network. You'll be fine financially, he went on, as if we were talking business. The kids will adjust. Kids always do. He slept in the guest room that night. I lay awake, replaying the last 15 years, wondering if anything had been real. In the morning, he left for the hospital before dawn. He'd left his lawyer's business card on the kitchen counter. The perfect life I thought we'd built was actually a mirage. The cracks were always there. I was just too into our illusion to notice them. What I didn't know then was that the lipstick stain and affair were only the obvious cracks in a foundation that had been faulty from the start. Ethan's betrayal was much deeper than I could ever imagine, and the real nature of his deception would soon turn my world upside down, making his affair look minor by comparison. The day after Ethan left his lawyer's card, I made an appointment with Miss Miller, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Oakdale Heights. I needed to know my options and get ready for the fight ahead. Miss Miller's first instruction was clear. Document everything, Sarah, especially the finances. That evening, after putting the kids to bed and telling them, Daddy's just busy at the hospital, I opened our home safe. Inside were 15 years of financial records, tax returns, investment statements, and property deeds. As I sorted through the papers, discrepancies started popping up, like dark threads in what I thought was a perfect fabric. Monthly withdrawals, 5 years Ursens, 7, 500, sometimes 10 years Ursend, were made from our joint savings account to an entity called Riverside Holdings. No explanation, no paper trail showing where this money ended up. Over the last 2 years, almost 250 years Ursend had vanished. I called our bank the next morning. The account manager was hesitant, but eventually confirmed my suspicions. Riverside Holdings was an LLC registered only in Ethan's name. The money trail stopped there. Is this normal in divorces? I asked Ms. Miller during our follow-up meeting, sliding the bank statements across her mahogany desk. Hiding assets? Unfortunately, yes, she said, looking at the documents through narrow reading glasses. But this pattern suggests something more calculated, something long-term. It was during this conversation that Ms. Miller brought up Dr. Allen. His name came up in another case of mine, she explained. A former colleague of your husband's. He left Ashford Medical Center 3 years ago under weird circumstances. Might be worth talking to him. I vaguely remembered Dr. Allen, quiet, dedicated, always a bit awkward at hospital events. He had simply disappeared from the medical community without any explanation. Ethan had brushed off my questions, saying it was just professional differences, nothing interesting. It took 5 calls to find his current practice, a small family clinic 40 miles outside the city. His receptionist was protective, but as soon as I mentioned Ethan's name, she transferred me right away. Mrs. Carter. His voice had a weight to it that made my stomach clench. I've been expecting your call for years. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Dr. Allen had aged a lot since I'd last seen him, deep lines around his eyes, and his hair was graying early. He ordered black coffee and looked at me with a clinical gaze. I knew this day would come, he said quietly. I just didn't know which of us would break first, me with my conscience, or Ethan with his arrogance. What he told me over the next hour completely shattered what was left of my world. The fertility clinic at Ashford had a problem, he explained, his voice barely above a whisper. Several couples reported failed IVF procedures even though conditions were ideal. I noticed inconsistencies in the lab reports, small differences between the documentation and the actual procedures. My hands shook around my untouched latte. We'd gone through 3 rounds of IVF to conceive the twins, and 2 more for Lily. Each failure was devastating, and each success felt like a miracle. I started investigating quietly. The clinic director, Dr. Stone, was falsifying results, swapping specimens, and manipulating success rates to keep the clinic's reputation and funding. When I confronted him, he admitted Ethan knew, more than just aware, he was involved. That's impossible, I whispered. Ethan wanted children. We both did. Dr. Allen slid a thumb drive across the table. Hospital records, lab reports, Ethan's signature authorizing procedural modifications, his polite way of saying tampering with specimens, including yours. Why? Why? My voice cracked. Why would he do this? Originally, it was for career advancement. Dr. Stone was on the board that later promoted Ethan to chief. But with your case, he paused. Ethan has a hereditary heart condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's mild in his case, but there's a 50% chance of passing it to his children. A surgeon with his ambition couldn't risk having children with a condition that might make his professional judgment look bad. The implications hit me like a tidal wave. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. So during our IVF treatments, he made sure his sperm was never actually used. The clinic used anonymous donors instead. Ethan knew exactly what he was doing. I left the meeting with the thumb drive, feeling like it was burning a hole in my purse, and a recommendation for a discreet genetic testing service. That night, after the kids were asleep, I collected DNA samples, hair from their brushes, and saliva from their toothbrushes. I also included one of Ethan's combs from the master bathroom he wasn't using anymore. Waiting 2 weeks for the results was excruciating. Ethan had sped up the divorce process, asking for custody evaluations, and claiming my emotional instability made me an unfit mother. His lawyer sent intimidating letters, questioning my ability to financially support the children and suggesting my contribution to the family was minimal. They offered a settlement that would leave me with barely enough to live on, a calculated move to force me to give in. Meanwhile, I kept up appearances. I helped the twins with their science projects, attended Lily's recital, smiled at school drop-offs, and nodded politely when other mothers asked about Ethan's absence. Hospital schedule, I'd say. You know how it is. At night, I researched medical ethics violations and fertility fraud. The cases I found were devastating. Doctors using their own sperm instead of donors, clinics mixing up embryos, and families finding out biological truths decades later. But I didn't find any case like ours. A husband deliberately making sure his children weren't biologically his, creating a family under false pretenses while pretending there was a genetic connection. The testing center called on a Tuesday morning. The woman's voice was professional and detached. We have your results, Mrs. Carter. Would you like me to email them, or would you rather talk about them on the phone? Email, I whispered, knowing I had to see the evidence myself. The report's clinical language couldn't soften the blow. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested children. The probability of paternity is 0%. I printed 3 copies, one for my lawyer, one for the safe deposit box I'd opened only in my name, and one I slipped into a cream-colored envelope with the Ashford Medical Center logo, which I'd taken from Ethan's home office during those weeks of pretending nothing had changed. My hands weren't shaking anymore. The devastation had turned into something harder, colder. This wasn't just about an affair or hidden money. This was about a fundamental betrayal that started before our children were even conceived. Ethan had taken away my choice. He had built an elaborate lie that shaped 15 years of my life, my identity as a mother, and our children's very existence, all while presenting himself as the generous provider, the dedicated father, and the brilliant life-saving surgeon. The truth changed everything, and now I had the power to make sure it changed everything for him too. With the DNA test results in hand, my grief turned into something sharper, more focused. Ethan had built a false reality for 15 years, and now I would systematically and completely take it apart. I started by reaching out to other families who'd had fertility treatments at Ashford when Ethan was in charge. Dr. Allen provided a list of 27 couples who might have been affected. Most refused to speak with me, not wanting to question where their precious children came from. 5 agreed to meet. The Browns had twins who looked nothing like them. The Kahns had a daughter with unexpected medical issues. The Taylors, the Roberts, and the Smiths each had stories of miraculous conceptions after many failed attempts. Once Dr. Stone took a personal interest in their cases. We were just so grateful, Amy Smith told me, tears streaming down her face. We never questioned how it happened. My search led me to Ms. Davis, a former nurse who'd worked at the fertility clinic for 12 years. We met at her small apartment outside the city, where she lived surrounded by filing cabinets. I kept records of everything, she explained, her hands trembling a bit as she pulled out a leather-bound journal. Patient names, changes to procedures, signatures authorizing those changes. They thought I destroyed it all when I left. Why didn't you report them? I asked. Ms. Davis's smile was bitter. I did. Hospital administration, the medical ethics board, even the police. Every time, the investigation just disappeared. Your husband has powerful friends, Mrs. Carter. She showed me entries from 8 years ago, detailed documentation of specimen substitutions, fake consent forms, and procedural irregularities. Ethan's signature appeared repeatedly, authorizing protocol adjustments in cases with genetic concerns. And my case? I asked quietly. Ms. Davis turned to a page marked with my name and dates that matched our IVF procedures. Special instruction from Dr. Carter himself, specimen replacement authorized due to quality concerns. No donor identification recorded. I took photos of every page, every signature, every damning note. As I was leaving, Ms. Davis pressed a business card into my hand. Medical Ethics Investigation Unit. Ask for Agent Clark. Tell him I sent you. Agent Clark worked for a joint task force investigating healthcare fraud. He'd been building a case against Ashford for 18 months, but couldn't get past the wall of silence around the fertility clinic. Your evidence could be the key, he explained during our first meeting. But we need more. Financial records showing kickbacks, recorded confessions, and testimony from someone currently inside. I committed to getting him what he needed, while still pretending to be a woman reluctantly accepting divorce. I smiled sadly at Ethan during mediation sessions, agreed to temporary custody arrangements, and pretended to consider his insulting financial settlement. You're being surprisingly reasonable, Sarah, Ethan remarked after one particularly tense meeting with our lawyers. The children come first, I replied softly. I just want what's best for everyone. His confidence grew with every concession I seemed to make. He brought Dr. Olivia Lee to school functions, introduced her to our friends, and even had her stay overnight when the children visited his new downtown apartment, all while I quietly recorded conversations, photographed documents, and built my case. My investigation took an unexpected turn when I hired a private investigator to look into Dr. Olivia Lee's background. The report revealed something stunning. She wasn't just Ethan's colleague and lover, she was Miss Wilson's daughter. Miss Wilson had been Ethan's patient 5 years ago, a routine valve replacement that ended tragically when Ethan supposedly made an error during the procedure. The hospital investigation cleared him, concluding Ms. Wilson hadn't disclosed a medication that complicated her surgery. The truth, buried in records Agent Clark found, was that Ethan had been operating on minimal sleep after a weekend with Dr. Olivia Lee in Chicago. His error was covered up, the records were falsified, and the family was paid off with Ashford funds. Ms. Wilson's husband died a year later from stress-induced heart failure, leaving Dr. Olivia Lee alone. She changed her last name, erased her past connections, and systematically worked her way into Ethan's life, first as a colleague, then as his mistress. Her revenge had been years in the making, just like mine was now. I thought about confronting her, maybe even suggesting we team up, but decided against it. Dr. Olivia Lee's motivations were emotional and volatile. Mine needed to be calculated and precise. Over the next month, I collected testimonies from former clinic employees, tracked the money from Ashford to Riverside Holdings and offshore accounts, and got sworn statements from patients whose treatments were messed up. Agent Clark built a legal case, while I built something more personal, the complete dismantling of Ethan Carter's carefully crafted image. I recorded Liam during one of our co-parenting chats, gently guiding the talk toward fertility treatments. The twins have your eyes, I just tossed out there. Good genes, he said, looking at his phone. Do you ever wonder if they got your heart condition? His head shot up. What? Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, Dr. Grant told me. Liam's face got really dark. Grant should keep his mouth shut about stuff that's none of his business. See, don't our kids' health issues concern him, or me? There's nothing to worry about, he brushed it off. I had him tested years ago. They're fine. How could you test them without telling me? I'm their dad and a doctor. I made a medical decision here. The recording caught every word, him admitting to the condition, saying he tested our kids without me knowing, and still pretending they were biologically his. It was the last thing Agent Miller needed. The timing was absolutely perfect. The yearly Ashford Medical Center Gala was coming up, which was the biggest event on the hospital's schedule. Liam had been picked for the Physician of the Year award because of his big breakthroughs in heart surgery and his rock-solid ethics. The invite showed up at our place, still for both of us, even with our divorce pending. Liam texted that he'd bring Chloe as his date, but I was welcome to come if it wasn't too weird. I texted back, perfectly mixing hurt pride with polite acceptance. I wouldn't miss it. You really deserve this. What Liam didn't know was that I'd already met with the hospital board chair and shown him some of the evidence. A special meeting was set right before the gala, where Agent Miller would lay out the whole case against Liam, Dr. Bell, and the fertility clinic. while getting my gala dress ready, a sleek black gown. Chloe once texted Liam calling, "Suburban mom tries sophistication." I found out Liam and Chloe would celebrate at Vincenzo after the awards, our special restaurant where he proposed 15 years ago. It was the perfect final touch to my carefully planned reveal. The envelope with the DNA results was set. The authorities were ready. Every single detail was thought of. For the first time in months, I felt this calm certainty. Liam had spent 15 years building a lie. Tomorrow night, the truth was finally coming out. The Ashford Gala night arrived with perfect timing, all dramatic. Thunderstorms threatened but didn't hit. The sky was dark and full of possibility. I walked into the hotel ballroom alone, wearing that black dress Liam always said made me look like I was trying too hard. My hair was up, diamond earrings, a gift from a husband who was basically gone, catching the light as I moved through all the medical bigwigs. I saw Liam right away, holding court near the stage, his arm around Chloe's waist like he owned her. She was in crimson, the exact shade of lipstick that kicked off this whole mess of revelations. Hospital board members were all around them, laughing at his jokes, admiring his perfect date. They looked like success itself. The secret board meeting had just finished about 30 minutes before. I'd watched from a side room as Agent Miller showed the evidence, financial records, patient statements, Olivia Green's detailed papers. The board members' faces changed from skeptical to shocked, then to grim determination. The hospital's lawyer had immediately called the district attorney's office. Liam, of course, didn't know any of this while he was getting congratulated for his upcoming award. He didn't know police were at every exit, waiting for Agent Miller's signal. He had no idea his perfectly built life was minutes from falling apart. I quietly mingled, taking condolences for my failing marriage from colleagues' wives who always saw me as just an accessory to Liam's genius. "So brave of you to come tonight," Sarah Collins, the chief of surgery's wife, whispered. Her sympathy was real, even while her eyes followed Liam and Chloe. "I wouldn't miss seeing Liam get the recognition he earned," I replied with a smile that made her clearly uncomfortable. The award ceremony went on as planned. The hospital board chair, Dr. Eva Stone, decided a public reveal would be better than a quiet arrest. Liam went up to the stage to huge applause, taking the crystal trophy with practiced humility. "Medicine isn't just science," he said solemnly into the mic. "It's a sacred trust between doctors and patients. Ethics have to guide every decision, every procedure, every second in the OR." I watched Chloe during his speech, noticing her shoulders were a bit tense, and her eyes had that planned, adoring look. She was playing a part, just like I had for 15 years, but for totally different reasons. Our eyes met for a second across the room, and something passed between us, like we understood each other. Two women who knew the real Liam Carter. After the ceremony, they went to Vincenzo, just like it was planned. I followed 20 minutes later, the cream envelope safe in my purse. The restaurant was still the same. White tablecloths, soft lights, an Italian opera playing quietly in the background. The maitre d' recognized me right away. "Mrs. Carter, great to see you again. Your husband said you might join them." Liam was either super confident or trying to set me up for public humiliation. Either way, it worked perfectly with my plan. They were at our old favorite table by the windows. Liam had ordered the 1982 Bordeaux we drank for our anniversary 5 years ago. That bottle between them cost more than a month of groceries for our kids. Liam saw me first. His look changed from surprised to smug, clearly thinking I was there to beg him for something. Chloe turned her perfect face, settling into a mask of polite concern. "Jennifer," Liam's voice had that condescending tone he'd mastered. "This is unexpected, isn't it?" I walked up to their table, calm and composed. "You told the maitre d' I might join you guys. Just a courtesy. I didn't think you'd actually show up." Chloe shifted, looking uncomfortable. "Maybe I should leave you two alone for a bit." "Please, stay," I said, looking her right in the eye. "After all, you've earned your spot at this table. Chloe, or should I call you Chloe Harris?" She went completely pale. Liam's brow crinkled up in confusion. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. "Chloe knows, right, Chloe? Daughter of Eleanor Harris, the patient whose death you covered up, Liam. The woman whose heart valve you replaced when you were dead, tired from your weekend with her daughter in Chicago. Pretty ironic, right?" Liam turned to Chloe and it started to sink in for him. "Is this true?" Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. I used that brief confusion to put the cream-colored envelope on the table. "Congrats on your freedom," I said quietly. "I think you'll find this pretty interesting to read." Liam's hand shook a little as he opened it and pulled out the DNA test results. I watched his face change, first confused, then disbelieving, then horrified as he finally got it. "This can't be happening," he whispered. "Oh really? You made sure your sperm was never used during our IVF treatments. You faked medical records. You lied to me for 15 years about our kid's actual existence." Chloe stared at the paper, then at Liam. What's she talking about? Nothing, Liam snapped, trying to get back in control. Jennifer's making up stories 'cause she can't handle our divorce. Then you won't mind explaining this to the hospital board, I replied, pointing to the restaurant entrance where Dr. Eva Stone and some board members now stood with Agent Miller. Or the district attorney's office. Or our kids. Liam's face twisted with rage. You vindictive? Watch your next words. Agent Miller cut him off, walking to our table. Dr. Liam Carter, I'm arresting you for medical fraud, financial crimes, and ethical violations under the Medical Practice Act. The restaurant went silent as Miller read out his Miranda rights. Chloe sat frozen, her own revenge replaced by something much bigger than she'd ever planned. You've been planning this, Liam hissed as an officer cuffed him. All those months playing the nice ex-wife. 15 years, Liam. You lived your life for 15 years. I just needed 3 months to expose it. As they let him off, Chloe stayed at the table, staring at her half-empty wine glass. I didn't know about the kids, she said softly. I believe you, I said back. Your mom deserved justice too. In the weeks after that, the story blew up across both medical and regular news. Liam faced many felony charges, and his medical license was suspended until the trial. The fertility clinic got shut down for a full investigation. Dozens of families stepped up, wanting answers about their kids' genetic origins. The financial fallout was instant and huge. Liam's hidden money was frozen. The court assigned a forensic accountant who tracked every dollar he'd moved around. My kids' financial future was safe thanks to a trust set up with the money they got back. Dr. Grant came up to me after Liam's preliminary hearing. Ashford's setting up an ethics review committee to watch over reproductive services once they reopen. They've asked me to lead it. That's great, I said, really meaning it. Actually, I thought we could co-chair it. Your point of view would be priceless. That offer surprised me. For 15 years I'd been Jennifer Carter, the surgeon's supportive wife. My identity was totally swallowed up by Liam's career, his needs, and his image. Now they were asking me to step up as myself. 6 months after the gala, I sat across from Chloe at a different restaurant. Our unlikely team-up happened during the legal stuff 2 women used by the same guy for different reasons. Do you regret it? She asked, exposing everything. The kids are gonna find out the truth eventually. I thought about her question carefully. They'll find out their origins aren't what we thought. But that doesn't change who they are or how much I love them. Their whole life foundation was built on lies. I chose the truth, even if it's hard. That night, watching my kids sleep in the house we'd held onto despite Liam trying to force a sale, I felt something I didn't expect, not satisfaction or being proven right, but liberation. The perfect family illusion was broken, but something real was there instead. I wasn't living someone else's carefully made-up lie anymore. For the first time in 15 years, I was writing my own story. It was messy, complicated, and totally mine.